Welcome to the Prophecy Club. I've got John Moore on the line with me today. We're going to continue talking about things in the earth. Today we're going to be talking about what is going on in the Middle East, war in the Middle East, and things like that. Who's John Moore? Well, he was an intelligence analyst in the U.S. Army. He is now a homicide detective, a private detective, and a radio host. He has been investigating Earth changes since 2000 and has some startling discoveries. We've been talking about those in the last several broadcasts, but today we're going to talk about war in the Middle East. John, welcome back to the Prophecy Club.
Good to be here. Thank you, sir.
All right, so do you believe we are on the precipice of war in the Middle East? If so, why?
Well, yes, sir. I do believe that we may very well be on the precipice of war. These alleged Arab Spring events, as they're being called, there's nothing spontaneous about these. These uprisings are not spontaneous. They're being backed by the international bankers and covert ops from the CIA, providing the intelligence and weapons and recruitment, of course, of people to engage in these activities.
Now, I believe that, but how can you prove that? How do you know that?
First of all, it flies in the face of the Muslim culture and religion and beliefs to rise up against their own government, especially Libya being an example. Libya was a government which was taking very good care of their people, providing health care and education and housing for their people. And the people were quite content with a very good situation for themselves. The people had no reason to uprise against Muammar Gaddafi. What's going on in Syria right now is a continuation of this. And we should point out, going back to Libya a moment, the rebels were still consolidating their victories, and they immediately went into an alliance with the international bankers. And one of the things the international bankers don't like about these various Muslim countries is they don't participate in the international banking schemes to basically put everybody into usury and slavery through usury. It goes against their religion, and they don't do it. There's not going to be any safe havens from getting away from these international bankers as far as they're concerned. So what's going on in Syria is a continuation of that.
So you're saying you have inside sources, people you've talked to, people in positions that know that this is the truth of what's going on there?
I do. My sources are telling me that the leadership and funding and training and equipment is all coming from the CIA.
That's what I didn't know if it was CIA or NATO or just the United States.
Well, one's pretty much the same as the other. But the Russians are pretty upset with this. Syria has been a client state of Russia for many, many years, decades. And this is definitely going to upset the balance of power.
This would be like the Russians coming over and deciding that they're going to overthrow Mexico.
That's a good analogy, except that we haven't been supporting Mexico the same way that Russia's been supporting Syria with arms sales of very sophisticated weaponry, high-performance jet aircraft, communication systems, air defense systems. The same thing applies to Iran. Iran's been a first-tier client state of Russia for decades as well, since we pulled out, with the most sophisticated and latest of weapons, air defense systems, communication systems, and aircraft, all of which require a lot of maintenance and logistical support.
Would you say that America is acting pretty arrogant in regards to their overthrow of Iraq, Afghanistan, and now Libya and Egypt, and in the process Syria?
Arrogant is one of the adjectives I would use. When I went to school, Stan, I know that most people my generation, we were taught that the way you can tell an evil country is an evil country invades countries at peace that present no threat to anybody else. And that's what we've been doing now for about 12 years, invading countries at peace that present no threat to anybody
Well, when
else.
I went to school, they told us that America was not allowed to attack another country unless they first attacked America.
I never heard that we weren't allowed to, but I did hear that we never did, and that the countries that we were fighting against did engage in that practice, which would be, at the time, of course, Italy, Japan, and Germany, all invaded countries at peace. And that's how we knew that they were evil. And now we're doing the same thing. And arrogance is a great word to describe what we are. Our United States has become the most feared country on the planet, and not for good reasons, but for very, very bad reasons.
Well, we are attacking people that we should not attack. We don't have the authority to do a lot of the things that we're doing. It seems like we feel like we're invincible. We can just jump out and do anything we want to. If we want the oil from Iraq and Afghanistan, the wealth there, Egypt, Libya, we just go take it.
That's what we've been doing. And it turns out the mineral wealth in Afghanistan is fabulous, measured in many, many billions of dollars of copper and various other metals that are necessary.
Oh, yeah, they found this huge, what they put into the batteries, especially for like cell phones. Yeah, the lithium, huge lithium mine there. So going back to what I'm trying to say there, I think the Russians are angry at America. I mean, I think they are really, really angry. Well, I mean, I think Americans are angry with our government.
They should be. They should be. It's kind of ironic where the alleged pretext for going into Afghanistan was Osama bin Laden being there with all his al-Qaeda buddies. There was never more than 2 school bus loads of al-Qaeda in Afghanistan ever. And it turns out they weren't even in Afghanistan anyway. They were in Pakistan right next door.
Okay, now let me bring my prophetic angle to what you're saying here. I believe that Daniel chapter 7, specifically verse 6, specifically talks about a leopard. Now, there's actually 4 beasts. Of course, the first one is the lion. Coming out of the lion is the eagle's wings of America, the lion being England. The second beast is the Russian bear. The third beast is the leopard. Now, in my last several DVDs I've talked about, I went into detail explaining why I believe that the leopard is actually Islam. And it says it has 4 wings on the back of it and 4 heads. 4 wings means 4 nations. 4 heads means each nation has a head. 4 nations, 4 heads. And those 4 nations will be, I could be wrong, one of them could be Saudi Arabia, but for reasons I already put on the DVD I won't go into right now, I don't believe it's Saudi Arabia or Yemen or some of those other. I believe these are going to be the nations, and that's Libya, Egypt, Syria, Iraq, Iran. If you count those up, that's 4 nations, but there's 4 wings of a fowl and 4 heads on the leopard. So how do you get 5 nations, and how do you get those 5 nations to count 4? Well, in Daniel chapter 2, the statue, the arms of silver meant Iraq, Iran. So we know that prophecy counts Iraq, Iran as 1 nation. So Iraq, Iran, Syria, Egypt, Libya, those 5 nations will be the 4 nations of the leopard or the caliphate that will rise. Before you can get the 4th beast, which is world government, you have to have the 3rd beast. Once the 3rd beast, the Islamic leopard, rises to power, then you can have the world government. Can't have it until then. Prophecy dictates it that it will be that way. So what we're seeing in the Middle East is the rise of the leopard, and as I've been saying on this radio program and the last several DVDs that I've made, you will see Syria overthrown. Russia can get angry all they want. They can move in arms. They can move in aircraft carriers. But prophecy says it will happen. Syria will be turned from a secular government to a Sharia law Muslim government. That's what all 5 of these countries will be, Sharia law Muslim governments. And then when they're in place, then you can have the 4th government.
Well, sir, it certainly seems to be headed that direction. The rebels in Syria seem to be an unstoppable force. That the logistical help that they're getting, that the intelligence they're getting, all leads to what appears to be almost a foregone victory.
What I understand the CIA's primary job globally is to track, monitor the drug trade, specifically heroin and marijuana, things like that, the illegal drug trade, and the primary use of those funds goes to black projects. Is that accurate?
Yes, sir. The CIA has been heavily involved in drugs for going back to at least till Vietnam. Maybe.
Okay, I can certainly see the reason for wanting to have Afghanistan, since that's the primary supplier of heroin to the world.
Well, it's kind of ironic. The Taliban had just about shut down the growing of the poppies, and since we've been there, in fact, the football player Pat Tillman was ready to spill the beans and go public with it, which was probably why he was murdered. The Army Ranger who had been a professional football player, Pat Tillman.
Okay, so continue. Tell us more about the Middle East, why you think it's going to war.
We've got these aircraft carrier task force, which is typically 10 or 12 ships with a aircraft carrier in the middle, doing these 50-mile circles off the coast of Somalia and in the Mediterranean. The Americans have, I believe, 2 aircraft carrier task forces. The Chinese have 1. I believe the Russians have 1. I believe the Brits and possibly even the French have their own aircraft carrier task forces, and this is a way countries traditionally have projected power into other parts of the world. It's a powder keg. With all this hardware out there and all these young men with too much testosterone at the controls of high-performance jet aircraft, it would be real easy for a mistake to be made and a spark to ignite a major, major war in that part of the world.
Okay, well, let me bring in what Lindsey Williams says, then I'll give you my opinion, then you comment. Okay, Lindsey says that the ruling elite say that there is not going to be war with Iran unless Israel invades Iran. And, of course, that may happen. I personally believe, from the things that I understand, I know there's going to be war in the Middle East, but as far as World War III, I think it's not going to be coming for, I'm going to say, another 5 to 7 years. I don't think it's imminent. There is no question. The Chinese and many other nations are building up their military. We are in the process of building up our military for World War III. I'm talking about the world is.
Absolutely, absolutely. All the indicators are going in that direction, that the major powers are scaling up. The Chinese are building ships at a tremendous rate. The Russians are rebuilding their navy, which has been in disrepair for some time.
Well, talk about the Russians. They paid off their national debt, what was it, 7 years ago? In other words, they don't owe the IMF any money. And I just talked to a lady from Lithuania just last week, and she has family in Lithuania. Lithuania is like saying New Mexico is right next to Texas, all right? And I said, well, how is the Russian economy? She said, oh, the Russian economy is good. It's very good. It's growing. Russian economy, it's good. I mean, she really lit up when I asked about the Russian economy. Yeah, Russia is actually doing well.
Mm-hmm. Well, if you're dealing with cash and you have all that income from selling oil, which is one of their main exports, they should be doing quite well.
Oh, yeah. Russians are selling loads of oil to China. Mm-hmm. And, of course, the Russians have their 310 what they call super deep oil wells. We'll be right back after this message. We are offering all of Stephen Dolan's items. Stephen is an ex-Satanist high priest of the Church of Satan. In the Occult in Your Living Room, Stephen shows you the evil behind objects found in most every Christian's home. Next, in Under the Spell of Harry Potter, Stephen shows you how Harry Potter is actually used by the Satanists to teach spellcasting, potions, and curses. It indirectly prepares children to receive the mark of the beast, and it portrays Christians as weak and without power. You get both book and DVD. And in Illuminati Game or Blueprint for World Domination, Stephen shows the prophecy found in the card game called Illuminati New World Order, which accurately predicted the events of 9/11. Finally, Stephen has just made a brand new DVD called Occult Holidays Revealed, in which he reveals the truth behind Christmas, Easter, and Halloween, the world's most celebrated holidays. We're also offering all 4 DVDs and 1 book valued at $135, all for a gift to the ministry of just $50 or more. Order the Dolan's gift offer today and get free shipping. I just made the revised Revelation Verse by Verse 2.0. The new 2.0 version has 612 PowerPoint slides, 212 pictures, and 10 charts. The topics are: what is the message of the 7 churches? Who are the 4 horsemen? Is Revelation layered or sequential? What is a probable time for the tribulation to begin? Who are the beasts from the sea, the earth, and the pit? What does is fallen mean? What does it look like the day Jesus returns? Is the day of the Lord a year, a month, or a 24-hour day? Who is the woman who rides the beast? Who is the false prophet? Does the New Jerusalem come down at the end of 6,000 years or 7,000 years? When do we get our mansions? Are there 1 or 2 judgments on America? When is the door shut to the 5 virgins? Does everyone who survives Armageddon automatically get a glorified body? 2/3 of mankind is killed in the tribulation. What happens to the other 1/3? 8 hours, 4 DVDs, valued at $120. The upgrade gift amount is $30. The full version, $75. Call 785-266-1112. Ask for 2.0. That's Revelation Verse by Verse, second version, 2.0. Call 785-266-1112 or go to prophecyclub.com. Revelation Verse by Verse 2.0. And now, back to the program. And, of course, the Russians have their 310 what they call super deep oil wells, super deep defined as something over 30,000 foot deep. And when you drill that deep, you get the highest quality oil at tremendous pressures, and it is supplying they're building up. It's supplying Russia's war machine to be built right now.
Absolutely, absolutely, and they're doing it. the whole pretext of the alleged collapse of communism in 1989, 1990 was to bring this about, where we would be disarming from our strategic weapons, and at the same time the Russians aren't giving up anything.
So you're saying that the world is on a precipice of World War III. The world is building up military, preparing for this next war.
Absolutely. I could reach no other conclusion.
And it could come any day now.
It is, either by design or inadvertently.
Okay, so how does civil disorder fit into this? I understand you have some information about that.
Right. Well, there's two possible ways that civil disorder could erupt nationwide, actually more than that. But the two main ways, one would be for the power grid to go down either from an EMP attack or attacks, plural, or a Carrington-type event, which the Department of Homeland Security is concerned about, which would be a solar flare that would knock out our power grid. The other possibility would be a financial collapse due to the collapse of the dollar, which is certainly at great risk right now. Either one of those, or the possibility of just riots starting in these inner cities, what appears to be spontaneously, which won't be spontaneous, like the L.A. riots. There will be contrived events, as the L.A. riots were, that could spread to other major cities. In fact, I have my private sources tell me that there's concern about Los Angeles, Chicago, and New York all having the possibility of civil disorder and riots in the next few months.
Michael Boldea said that there will be blood on the streets of America before the end of the year, and that was a "Thus saith the Lord." So that certainly confirms what you're talking about with civil disorder. Well,
it does. And it's not a pleasant thing to think about, and the L.A. riots were not spontaneous. They were contrived events. A fireman who was working here at the time, he's since retired, I debriefed him. He said, "John, we were going to these burned-out buildings, and we were finding military-issue incendiary devices in these burned-up buildings in Los Angeles. You know, gangbangers and civilians would have great difficulty getting their hands on military-issue incendiary devices. But that's what was being done in Los Angeles and during the L.A. riots."
So if these kind of civil disorders arise, what do you suggest we do?
Well, first of all, your spiritual preparedness is the single most important thing to get yourself right with God and Jesus. After that comes skills. The skills that you would need primarily would be emergency medical treatment skills and the skills of a ham radio operator, so you can communicate with friends and family and intercept all the emergency communications of the fire department, police department, and other government officials. You should have at least a 2 weeks, preferably larger, stock of water on hand, potable water for drinking and cooking and cleaning, and at least a 2 week, preferably 1 month supply of food on hand, medical supplies, radios, a bug-out plan in case things get too bad, an escape plan to leave your urban dwelling and to a safe area, and of course a way to defend yourself and the training to safely and properly use any firearms you might acquire so that you don't hurt innocent people.
Okay, well, I'm going to jump in here on this one. I let all of the sort of things you're saying go on by because I do think that there's people out there that do need to hear this. In other words, there are folks, let me say it again, there are some folks in America that definitely need to have some preparations, food, water, and those sort of preparations. Now, in case you would say, well, Stan, what about you? What kind of preparations do you have? Well, the very first dream that God gave me where he spoke to me said, quote, and I won't go into the whole dream, but I am holding you up. In other words, God has guaranteed me that he is going to protect me and my family, and I want to extend that to the other folks that listen and support and follow our ministry, because as we get the warnings, we're going to pass them on. So what kind of preparations do you have, Stan? I would say, well, I have some food, I have some water, I have some light preparations, but I really believe what he has spoken in my heart through various different ways, different dreams and things like that. I really believe that long before the trouble gets started, he is going to tell us that it's time to go. And of course, at that time, I'm going to pass it along to you folks out there. When I know, I'll let you know. All the way through our ministry, I've been a blabbermouth, okay? I mean, even Michael Boldea says, I know, if I tell you, you'll tell everybody. I said, well, I can keep a secret if you'll tell me something. I will keep it secret, but my heart is to tell everyone. So I will tell people as I know. I personally believe that, at least for me and my family, we need to keep ourselves light of foot to flee. I think that there'll be a time that God will tell us to leave this nation. I think trying to survive through the days ahead is going to be really, really tough. I think trying to survive until Jesus returns living in America is going to be next to impossible. I believe the best place to go is, of course, as I talked about before, Leslie and I love Hawaii, but the Bible says that every island will flee away. So I believe scripturally the best place to go is Jerusalem. Jeremiah chapter 51, verse 50 says, let Jerusalem come into your mind. And I believe that Jerusalem be the best place to live because Israel is going to be victorious in World War III. She's going to get back all of her land. She's going to be extremely blessed until the time of the tribulation gets here. And then, even in the middle of the tribulation, up until that point, she's still pretty blessed and protected of the Lord, and she'll never be uprooted from her land again. Then in the middle of the tribulation, when the Antichrist sits on the Ark of the Covenant, remember Jesus said, Matthew 24, when you see the abomination spoken of by Daniel the prophet, set in the holy place, in other words, that is when he sits on the Ark of the Covenant, then get out of Dodge, okay? You run 216 miles south to the real Mount Sinai, and God is going to protect you. Remember, I've talked about this before, that the Bible says that the dragon is going to throw water out of his mouth and try to drown the woman, but the earth is going to open up and swallow the water, and there she is protected. The woman's protected for 1,260 days, which is the last 3.5 years, or time, dividing of time. There, the last 3.5 years of the tribulation. Those people that stay in Jerusalem for the last 3.5 years, they don't recognize when the Antichrist sits on the Ark of the Covenant, that is the abomination of desolation. Those people will have to go through the time of Jacob's trouble. Matthew 24, Jesus speaking, described it as the worst time on earth that ever has been or ever will be. And yet God says that he will save 1/3 of the people that are in Jerusalem. 1/3 of them will come through the fire. Even then, the Bible also says that if even the whole world were to gather against Jerusalem, that they would not be victorious because Jesus returns. Now, yes, you ought to have some preparations, but your ultimate preparation is a clean heart, a good prayer closet, and I think a person needs to have preparations, but also stay fleet of foot. Most of all, you need to be able to be in that position to hear God. Okay, back to you, John.
Well, I couldn't agree more, Stan, with what you're saying. It has to be a mix of both. I know people who have literally semi-tractor trailer loads full of supplies, but they're spiritually lost, and their situation is hopeless, in my opinion.
Well, the more they're lost, the more they better have preparations.
Well, I also agree with that. Going through hard times without being spiritually prepared is not a good place to be. Really
I agree. As Michael Boldea said, every Christian has exactly the same safe place, and that is in the will of God. If you're in the will of God, then we don't have to worry what's coming.
People can get carried away with preparation and spend a lot of money and do things that maybe aren't all that necessary. I've seen it go both ways, and I encourage people to do prudent preparations and things that don't take all the money out of the bank or do something silly like that, or quit your job to run off to the mountains.
I don't even think that the real trouble is that close. I mean, I was spoken about when I think it is, but John, go ahead and tell us about your DVD set that I want to encourage them to order from the Prophecy Club.
Well, my DVD set, Global Warming, What the Government Isn't Telling You, is a 2-DVD set of almost 4 hours of lecture in front of a live audience, and I go through a lot of details there about what's happening, why it's happening, and how to do your own research, because I give a bibliography at the end of more than a dozen books that people can acquire for themselves and read for themselves. It's an excellent education, and it is available from the Prophecy Club.
All right, brothers and sisters out there, let me encourage you to call the Prophecy Club, 785-266-1112. You want to ask for the warning gift offer, and there are several different aspects, several different things you can get there as you call in. 785-266-1112. Let me take this opportunity, since we have a couple of minutes more in the time for the broadcast. Last week, I had on Stephen Dollins, and we were talking about the Illuminati card game. I want to clear something up. We are not saying that this Illuminati card game is a thus saith the Lord. Now, I think you understand that, but I just want to make certain I don't want any illusions here about that we're trying to say that these Illuminati cards are thus saith the Lord and these events are going to happen. What I do believe it is their plans, but of course only God knows the end from the beginning, and only God can watch over his words to see that they come to pass. These may be plans that the devil wants to do, but of course that does not necessarily mean that they'll come to pass. You remember the woman in the scripture that was able to give fortunes, tell people's fortunes, and Paul cast the demon out of her and she couldn't do it anymore. So the devil can foretell the future, the things he's going to do, but, he is the liar and the author of it. He can't tell the truth when it's really in his best interest to do so. He is the father of lies, and he comes not but for to steal, kill, and destroy. I believe this Illuminati card game is revealing his plans, but again, that does not necessarily mean his plans will come to pass. Take, for example, the one called Combined Disasters that seems to be portraying that there will be some kind of a combined disaster at the present Summer Olympics in London. Well, Leslie and I immediately prayed that that would not come to pass, and I'm asking you folks out there to pray that there is no disaster at the Summer Olympics or in London at all, period, ever. And we want to pray away these things. We don't want to set and hope they come to pass. Okay, we can pray away the works of darkness. We can overcome the plans and the wiles of the devil. So now with that, remember, these are points to pray that they don't come to pass. In Jesus' name. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your prayers and all of your gifts of support. God bless you.
Friends, the devil is walking about seeking whom he may devour. There is a battle for souls, and whomsoever much is given, of him shall much be required. If God has blessed you, and if this ministry has been a blessing to you, prayerfully consider joining the fight for souls by giving your financial support. We thank you and appreciate your faithfulness.
Now from the Prophecy Club, some exciting opportunities for you. We are offering all of Stephen Dollins' items. Stephen is an ex-Satanist high priest of the Church of Satan. In the Occult in Your Living Room, Stephen shows you the evil behind objects found in most every Christian's home. Next, in Under the Spell of Harry Potter, Stephen shows you how Harry Potter is actually used by the Satanists to teach spellcasting, potions, and curses. It indirectly prepares children to receive the mark of the beast, and it portrays Christians as weak and without power. You get both book and DVD. And in Illuminati Game or Blueprint for World Domination, Stephen shows the prophecy found in the card game called Illuminati New World Order, which accurately predicted the events of 9/11. Finally, Stephen has just made a brand new DVD called Occult Holidays Revealed, in which he reveals the truth behind Christmas, Easter, and Halloween, the world's most celebrated holidays. We're also offering all 4 DVDs and 1 book valued at $135, all for a gift to the ministry of just $50 or more. Order the Dollins gift offer today and get free shipping. I invite you to order my brand new DVD, Stargates, Wormholes, and the Bottomless Pit. Have 10,000 scientists from 100 countries recreated an Egyptian Stargate or wormhole? Was the idea for movies such as Contact, Hellboy, and Stargate SG-1 birthed from their plan to build a modern Stargate? Is their stated goal to recreate the Big Bang, the moment of creation, really a cover story for something more sinister? Will the 17-mile circular Large Hadron Collider, built 574 feet underneath Switzerland and France, open a door to another world? Some scientists fear it could easily open a wormhole or create a black hole and destroy this planet. Is it what fulfills the prophecy that the beast shall ascend out of the bottomless pit? Call 785-266-1112 and order Stargates, Wormholes, and the Bottomless Pit, or go to prophecyclub.com.